Spectre Vision Radio.
I'm looking up at the stairs, at the exposed, the open side of the staircase. And on one of the upper steps, crouching and looking through the bars at me, I saw this short, dark, hairy creature.
They claim that our eyes will just be created a slightly different from what they are. When we talk, we see things that are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. How you doing tonight, Allison?
Doing okay.
Good to know. It's good to have some okay.
Yeah, as opposed to like the normal okay.
Tonight I'm going to be talking with Morgan, who saw the Cowardly Lion.
Like the Wizard of Oz Cowardly Lion?
Yeah. As a little one from the top bunk looking down, I believe.
Like a sleepover? An impromptu sleepover with the Wizard of Oz? I don't know. The Wizard of Oz, I think, there was a time when the Wizard of Oz was pretty big in the general in the youth population.
I talked about that when I said what an event it was when we were young, when the Wizard of Oz would come on TV, because, before it was on videotape and you could just watch it whenever you wanted, or, now you can call anything up and watch anything you want anytime. It was like an event when the Wizard of Oz came on TV. Morgan also saw a hairy creature in the house, and then sort of the same creature again, but like slightly different. It's very interesting. Some possible Fae experiences and more. Before we get to Morgan, I'd like to thank our patrons. Thank you, patrons. Thank you for everything you do. We could not do Strange Familiars without your help. If you like Strange Familiars and you'd like to help us make the show and get extra content besides, you can become a patron at Patreon. It's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. All of our patrons get commercial-free versions of the weekly show, plus extra episodes. We do at least one full extra episode for our patrons every month. Sometimes we do more. Our Patreon patrons also get to participate in an ongoing paranormal experiment, which has begun. It's in full swing, but the way it's crafted is that anytime you join, you can become a participant in the experiment. So it's not too late. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars for more information. We also have a program at Apple Podcasts. It's called Patron of the Strange there. And our Apple Podcast subscribers get the commercial-free shows weekly, as well as the extra episodes monthly. And very soon, we'll be starting YouTube memberships. You can subscribe now. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That's free. Just go ahead. You click one button on YouTube and subscribe. But we'll be starting memberships there pretty soon. And our YouTube members will get the extra episodes monthly as well. And I want to thank our patrons, no matter where they're signed up. Thank you so much. It's a huge help. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to Morgan's stories. I'd like to welcome Morgan to Strange Familiars. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, although it's very hot. I'm not sure where you are, but here it's very, very hot, and I'm not happy about it.
It's the same here in Pittsburgh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're in P. Yeah. Whew. I'm done with it already, and it's a long time till fall.
Yes, it's intense.
So you have a number of experiences you want to share with us tonight. I'm excited to get to them. I know just the basic things, which I like. I like going into interviews not knowing all the details because I like to ask questions, hopefully, as the listener would ask questions. So go ahead and walk us into it. And as you don't have to be super specific about where things happen. I know some of these, sometimes things happen in people's houses or in private property or whatever. But if you can give us an idea of about where and when these things happen.
Sure, yeah. The majority of my stories tonight took place in Bolivar, Ohio.
Okay.
That's actually the same small town that Seth Breedlove grew up in.
Okay.
Actually, I did not know him at all, which is interesting. Such a small town. He did like the Mothman and other documentaries after that. So that was kind of an interesting coincidence.
About what age do these sort of encounters start happening for you?
I would say that they started between the ages of 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you want to walk us into the first experiences, we can go from there.
Yeah. One of the earliest experiences I remember was being in my bedroom as a child. We lived in these apartments called Cedar Village was the name of the complex. And I was lying on my bottom bunk, and I was lying on my back. And at one point, I swear I saw looking down at me from the top bunk, like by the foot of the bed, the Cowardly Lion from the MGM version of The Wizard of Oz.
Interesting. Had you seen it at that point?
Oh yeah, I had seen it numerous times at that point, so it was a favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting, the Cowardly Lion was never really a favorite of mine. Yeah, but it looked exactly like, the version that Burt Lahr played, and it looked down at me from the top bunk, and it said in a monotone voice, "Don't sleep this way."
Wow.
Yeah, don't sleep this way.
Huh.
I was 16 before I could sleep on my back again.
Wow. Oh, that's very interesting. So did anyone stay in the top bunk?
No, it was there are bunk beds in preparation for my my half brother who wasn't born yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, oh wow, I find these things very interesting. I put this in the same category as like people who see cartoon characters and things like that when they're a child. These sort of characters they're familiar with. I often don't know what is up, but in this case, they do say people who sleep on their back have more sleep paralysis, potential breathing issues, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe this was some friendly advice instead of anything creepy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's crossed my mind so often since, because when I did start sleeping on my back as a teenager, then I started having sleep paralysis experiences. But to speak a little more to this experience, I don't remember really anything else except for running into my mom and stepdad's bedroom and just crawling in bed and saying, "I saw the Cowardly Lion."
Huh. Wow. And just saw him the one time?
I just saw him the one time. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting, though. Did you find it creepy or scary as a child?
I found this experience creepy. Yes,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, but we get so many of them now. That's so interesting.
Of character sightings?
Yeah. Like I said, either cartoon characters or, a lot of times people say they saw cartoon characters, some recognizable from cartoons and some just like something looked like a cartoon, appeared as like some kind of cartoon animal. Mm-hmm. But also stuffed animals have appeared. I think somebody saw like a stuffed SpongeBob that was sort of waving and beckoning him. Things like that. So yeah, it's interesting. And I just wonder if the other is, just reaching into our head and saying, okay, what can I use in there?
Yeah, I certainly will have some theories I'd be happy to circle back to that tying in, given some of my other experiences.
Yeah.
So sometime after that, actually, you know what? It could have been around the same time. The other experience I remember happening in that bedroom was having like a flu or something. Definitely being sick, kind of just like languishing in bed and rolling around. And I swear I saw myself standing by the side of the bed. Now, this could have just been, like a childhood sickness hallucination with a very medical basis. But, as we're all fond of saying, in these circles, it can be both.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Both ends. But I saw myself, what looked like myself, wearing like a doctor's coat and like a surgeon's band with like a little, the little disc.
The mirror reflector or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just did a podcast for somebody else's show on little doctors and doctors and so forth that appear to people. So that's quite interesting. I told them they're going to get They're going to get more of these stories just from talking about it here.
Oh,
Next interview I do, but as a doctor in the room, very interesting.
well, there was like a glow around the image, the way it appears in my memory, at least. I mean, this is a very old memory, but as I look back on it years, I always kind of remember there was a glow, and I sort of, this double of me had like their hands like under their chin, the face, and kind of smiling, just very static, like no movement. Like I compare it to like the old like Life Touch portraits,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said around 5?
Yeah, between 4 and 5, certainly.
So it looked like you at that age.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So a short doctor in the room
Oh,
appearing to people. That's very interesting.
listen to that. Yeah. Yeah, so those were two very isolated incidents that never like recurred in my life. But the main thing that happened in that apartment, I think it had to have been a little after. I was probably closer to 5 than 4. One night, I was downstairs in the living room area, and I remember I was watching Full House. And which was probably like in prime time then. So it was like in the evening, would have been like very early 90s. And my mother had stepped out probably like next door to speak to a neighbor really quick. And, I don't remember what caused me to leave the TV. Maybe I just needed to go to the bathroom or something. But the next thing I knew in my memory, I'm standing in the kind of like the hallway area where the base of the stairs and the kitchen and the front entrance all kind of unite. And I'm looking up at the stairs, at the exposed, the open side of the staircase. And on one of the upper steps, crouching and looking through the bars at me, I want to say it was probably gripping some of the bars, I saw this short, dark, hairy creature. And I think it was probably, if it were to stand up, it would be like about 5 feet, maybe a little taller. No genitalia characteristics, reading, anything like that showed itself. But I've written about this creature and this memory, and it looked, I always come back to the word organic.
Mm-hmm.
It did not look like a costume. It did not look like a character, although I have compared its head, like the conical shape, the terminus of the hair that had like a bit of a curlicue. I've sort of compared that to, Alf.
Okay.
Yeah. Sort of had like that sort of Alf shape top of the head. But other than that, I mean, it had probably like I want to say like a doggish humanoid sort of face, but it looked surprised. It looked startled. There was nothing malicious in the expression. It was curious, and it was studying me, and we looked at each other, and I don't remember what happened after that. I have no memory of like running next door to get my mom. Nothing. Just there was this creature there.
Huh. Yeah. Well, that's, I'd call that missing time after a creature sighting.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. And that it looks surprised is quite interesting as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We get that as well quite a bit, things I'm like, whoa, you can see me, somehow. Wow. Yeah. So does that concern you, the fact that you don't have any further memories after that?
I don't. And that one of the reasons it doesn't concern me so much is because I was so young. It could just be an instance of the shock of that experience overriding really like hardly anything else, almost everything else for the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, like I said, it didn't seem malicious. It didn't really scare me that much when it was happening. Yeah, so I don't really I feel more unsettled by the Cowardly Lion.
Interesting. That's super.
Than I do by that. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Did you end up, telling your mom about it or anything?
I must have. I'm sure I did. In fact, I remember like my early 30s, I may have just like brought it up in passing. I was we were sharing ghost stories at a family get together, and I was telling my nephew about it, but she didn't respond with any like recognition of that. She remembered the Cowardly Lion thing, but yeah.
I want to know what happened after, but I'm not suggesting anything sinister happened. It's interesting that there is missing time there.
I never saw that particular representation of that creature again. However, sometime after, when I was probably, I was probably like over 5, but not quite 6. It was a warmer time of the year. I remember this was outside. I didn't need a coat. So there were a lot of kids who lived in this apartment complex, and a few buildings behind mine, there were these 2 sisters around my age who I had befriended. I remember this so clearly. I went up to go play with them, and there was a little like park bench in front of their particular building. And there was an older woman who was visiting. She gave me the sense that she was like an aunt or a grandmother or something. So she was sitting at the bench, and the sisters were fairly, a little bit on the ADHD side, and they really couldn't sit still, and they were kind of going around the bench and going inside, and, couldn't be bothered to just kind of sit and hang out for a while. And at one point, the girls are gone, and I'm just sitting there with this grandmother or this aunt, and I look up at the building, and I look up at the bedroom, at the girl's bedroom. And there is what looked like to me, a person in a kind of like monstrous gorilla costume, leaning out of the window, like on the window frame, and waving at me.
Huh.
Yeah.
And this one seemed like a costume.
This looked like a costume.
Mm-hmm.
This looked like a costume, and the mask kind of had, like, the top part had that kind of elf-like curlicue as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, naturally, like, I just thought it was one of the girls. And I remember pointing to it and asking the woman there, hey, which of the sisters is that? And I remember her saying to me, clear as day, it's just pretend, like she didn't see it. Like, I'm like, no, there's a gorilla costume right there. And she, she's just like, no, nothing. It's just, nothing's there,
Right.
And just not even registering. And she seemed kind of concerned after a while, because I was just like insisting, like, no, this gorilla thing is waving at me.
Huh. So you don't think she saw it at all?
I don't think she saw it at all. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't for her,
I guess it wasn't.
I think sometimes that happens,
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting, because, this one very much seemed like a costume. The first one, you said it seemed very much organic.
Yeah. And again, if you'd like, we can kind of circle back to that. But I do have some theories about that. I'd be happy if you feel like it'd be more natural to kind of fit it in now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Fit in now? Okay. Like I said, I was a little older at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but wonder if when we're younger and we're a little closer to innocence and childlike wonder, if maybe we see these entities a little closer to how they would have us see them, a little closer to their natural state.
Mm-hmm.
And the older we get, the more consumerist we become, for lack of a better term. We see them as society would have.
Interesting.
Us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it very much could be. And if, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but like I said, if the other is using whatever we have in our imagination and cultural references and so forth to build these things, yeah, why not build a weird costume sometimes? And it builds in that sort of baked in doubt that seems to go with so much of the stuff as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, interestingly, around this same time, probably around the same time that the first sighting happened as well, I began having recurring dreams about a witch who lived in a fictitious house across the cornfields from the apartment complex. It was not always, I say it was a recurring dream, but it was more like a series of related dreams.
Okay.
I don't exactly remember how it started out. I would just sort of find myself with the knowledge that I was in this house across the complex. I would call it today like a brownstone sort of, mannerly type house.
Mm-hmm.
And this witch, I guess, just sort of resided mostly in the attic. And there were cots and beds lined up in this attic room, this large attic room, and there were other children there. And some of them were the children who lived in that complex. I wouldn't see the witch at first, and myself, and sometimes one of the neighbor girls and I would, decide to try to sneak out and go back home. Eventually the witch would appear, and she was incredibly makeshift looking. She looked like a country store, craft store, like doll that like somebody's grandma would have like on their kitchen shelf.
Mm-hmm.
But, so she could have just passed for like a pioneer kind of woman, except for like the witchy nose. Mm. She wore like whitish colors. She had, wispy white hair. There was glow of statically white light just all around her. And when she spoke, it was as if I was hearing her voice coming from elsewhere in the room. It was like I've described it as like a broken PA system.
That's an interesting detail. Wow.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that part. She would pursue me as I'd be trying to run away. And I remember sometimes she would touch me. She kind of hovered off the floor a few feet. So she would touch me with her finger, and a zap would go through me. Not like super painful, but just a bit of a zap, Mm-hmm. And when the dream would end, the last thing I would remember, when I remember the dream ending at least, is descending a spiral staircase down from the attic.
Huh.
Yeah.
So the cornfields were really there.
Yes.
In real life. The house was not.
No.
Okay. No. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. I don't want to diagnose anything, but I think that's a big dream. I think it's quite meaningful.
I think so too. Yeah. When I reached out to you, I had mentioned, an older episode, the Sask Witch Chronicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, that was really the first time that I had heard stories of hairy dark creatures being associated with witch entities.
Mm-hmm.
And, then I sort of did a deep dive then and, found, that there is some extensive lore. And you had mentioned like the Stick Indians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, the Precta always wore white, and she's sort of like the core example of the witchy woman that goes along with these wild men.
Oh, and she wore white. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Whatever that means and whatever that archetype, however it manifests, it certainly is a thing for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the figure of the witch, like the witch archetype, was also never really scary to me. Mm-hmm. If anything, it was, it was intriguing to me. I didn't really find her or that particular dream. I didn't call it a nightmare. Mm-hmm. But there was a definite sort of like abduction kind of experience.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going, but I try not to lead people into that because it can be a creepy kind of idea. But yeah, that's sort of where I was headed. And I'm not saying for sure that's what happened, but can you make a guess about how many times you had this dream? Or, a series of dreams, but this sort of theme, this recurring theme.
Probably at least 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never saw my witches when I was a child. I had a recurring witch dream. I always heard them. They were downstairs.
That's right.
I think there were 3 of them. It was a language I couldn't understand. So, yeah, to me, it's like, that's very interesting. Witches played a big role in my childhood fantasy life, possibly because of the Wizard of Oz. I remember it was an event whenever Wizard of Oz would come on TV. This is, pre-VHS.
Oh, yeah.
When I was real young. And whenever Wizard of Oz was on, it was an event. So I remember that. But there was also, in my neighborhood, what we called the witch tree. It was just an old dead tree and it would creak. And I remember it played such a massive part in my childhood, way disproportionate to anybody else in my family, because I would talk about it when we were grown up, when we weren't kids anymore. And some of my brothers were like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Don't you remember the witch tree?" And to them it was like, "Oh yeah, I think I remember. You used to be scared of that kind of thing." I was like, I was scared, but I was completely fascinated with it. And I would sit there and listen. It was too far away to hear out of my bedroom window at night, but I would sit there if my window was open and listen for it to see if I could hear her creaking. An older kid told me the creaking was this witch with her soul was trapped in the tree, and that was her saying spells, trying to get out or something like that. And I was completely obsessed with it. In any case, I had witch dreams as well, but I never got to see whatever was in my dream, or I don't even know if they were dreams. To me, I was very much awake. I just heard these three voices downstairs. With that in my childhood mind, I made them into witches for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense to me, though.
Yeah. So what are your feelings about those recurring dreams that you had?
I wrote a chapbook about these experiences recently, and it wasn't until I wrote that, interestingly, that I drew a connection between the spiral staircase at the end of the dream and the fact that the the hairy creature was crouched on the stairs.
Okay.
So to me, this feels very much like an initiation experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have felt in reviewing my experiences through the years and meditating on them, I truly feel like, how do I word this? I truly feel like with the things that I've seen and what I've experienced, if I had been born into a culture with a shamanic tradition, ideally, hopefully, I would have, received some training, in a folkloric tradition or by a medicine person. But because I lived in the culture that I did live in, that really had a lot of disdain for, these sort of things, instead what I gravitated towards was, through my teens and 20s would be into occult lore and witchcraft and that sort of thing, and alternative religion. And to me, I feel like a witch in a lot of ways is like an untrained shaman. When I was kind of doing my research into these dark hairy creatures, one of the articles that I stumbled across was it featured an image of a Slavic entity called the Domovoi, which is it was believed to be like the spirit of the household. And damn if it wasn't a perfect likeness to the first creature that I saw on the stairs.
Wow. Yeah. I love when that happens. And it just you just start making these connections and, is it the same thing? Who knows? But it certainly has that resonance, with what you saw and wow. Yeah. Interesting. You're still pretty young at this point. So do these experiences wane as you go through teenage years, or do they keep happening?
I would say that those particular, very visual, the Domovoi creature, those experiences waned, but in other ways with synchronicity and precognitive dreams and other bizarre things, the activity kind of ratcheted up in my teen years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because a lot of people I talked to, and for me, the case was, and I just truly think this was just I wasn't paying attention to anything but punk rock and girls and whatever else, whatever I was into and at the moment. But I had this period where, like, childhood, I had these things, and then it seemed like once I hit slightly before teenage years on through till my late teens, when things started happening again, was kind of this period where just not much happened. But I do think in a way, I shut it down in as much as, I just wanted to, whatever. I was trying to figure life out, and, I'm growing up and all that. So it's interesting to me that things continued for you, although differently. And they may have continued for me, and I may just not have realized it too. I mean, I may have been so, self-absorbed and teenagery that I didn't realize, think weird things were happening. I was too into whatever.
Well, I think for me, part of it had to do with the fact that after these Domovoy experiences, about a year or so after the last one, we moved into a house deeper in Bolivar that was, objectively, definitely haunted. It wasn't the most interesting haunted house story to just share in depth on a podcast, because I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard a lot of the details before. But so this stuff was never very far from my orbit.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what happened in that house, I think what ratcheted that up, the haunting up, is there was a lot of traumatic events kind of going on in my family around the time.
I think that can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I do feel moved to share about when I lived in that house, I had a dream. I had a couple dreams. I'll try to be brief here, but at that point in my life, my family, in my early childhood, they weren't particularly religious, but my mother, had mentioned that, I was baptized Catholic. She was more or less lapsed at that point. But I remember having a dream that she and my stepdad were going to visit a relative in Pittsburgh. So they took me to heaven to be babysat by the Virgin Mary and St. Joseph.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's just sort of one example of this mysticism that was kind of always in my life. And like I said, we didn't go to a Catholic church. We didn't have Catholic icons in the house. It was a very strange thing for me to dream,
mm-hmm.
And I had another dream that my mother was getting me ready for bed, and she handed me the phone and she said, "Do you want to talk to God?" And I remember holding the phone, and I don't exactly remember what the voice said to me, besides always remember in a very soothing voice. And the phone was smoking. There was white smoke coming off of it. And it was hot, but it didn't burn me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. So do you think it was telling you to remember that moment, or is there something specific it was telling you to remember that you don't recall now?
I don't recall. I don't know if it was just remember the good, remember the comfort, remember how I felt in that dream versus all the traumatic things that were in my waking life there.
Mm.
But I guess to answer your earlier question, experiences like that probably tethered me, now that I think about it, to the receptivity that I had through my teens,
mm-hmm. When did these possible Fae experiences happen?
Yeah, so that probably happened between the ages of 15 and 16. And then there was sort of a follow-up when I was 18. So these experiences mostly happened, or all happened, at the Bolivar Dam. It's like an uphill levee-like dam with a concrete tower. Below the tower, at the time, there was, just a valley and some woods. And now that is the last time I was there, 5 years ago, it's all underwater now. There's you cannot walk down there. But at the time you could walk down and kind of walk along the river. So this may not have been paranormal, but I have to bring it up, and I think they'll know why as I get into it. I was there when I was, like I said at the beginning, somewhere between like 14 and 16. I was hanging out down there with a friend, and we saw this family swimming in the river behind the tower. Now, there's a current going at a pretty good pace into the tower, the underside of the dam.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to drag you underground. You're going to drown if you go near that tower. That's super dangerous. It went downhill. There are rocks. Just astounded that people were doing this. That was not an everyday thing you saw there. But I'd never seen those people in town, and I bring it up because there was something sort of outdated about their appearance. And I never really thought of it as inherently paranormal because, in small town life, you do meet such people, who, just sort of, just sort of fit the hillbilly archetype, for lack of a more polite term.
Mm-hmm.
There were two, girls in between 12 and 14 swimming there. And in fact, it was actually kind of scary because when we were walking down before we got to the river, they were hiding behind some bushes. And my friend and I, we just saw people in the bushes. So we just glanced over and were trying to see if the people would look at us. And then we realized, oh, these are girls and they're changing. And this could be a really, it could be a really not good situation we're walking into. And they called their dad over. And I remember he had the kind of just like the hillbilly aesthetic, and, just his clothes looked like they're about 20 years out of date. And he glanced at us, didn't see as much of a threat. You could tell we were just taking a walk and kind of let us go. But then, the girls came out in their suit and they're like wading in this water, swimming in this water. And it's like, this is so dangerous. What are these people doing?
Yeah, I'm looking at photos of it. It does not look like a place where people would swim.
No, so that was super bizarre. So a little after that, the same friend and I, there were some woods by the road, kind of like under the tower, but like more so like around the levee part of it. And it was just like we were attracted to that area because it looked so beautiful, and you were technically trespassing if you went down to those woods, to this part of the woods. And then being teenagers, we thought, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to just explore this forbidden woods. I mean, it says, property of U.S. military. This was really strange. So we go down there, and we make it into the woods, and we're kind of just resting by this bank, and this motorcycle rolls down. It parks maybe about like 30 feet away from us. The man gets off. It's a taller African-American man in a black leather jacket and black pants. And he's like walking towards us. So I just tell my friend, okay, let's just play it cool. Let's just pretend we didn't see the no trespassing sign. He probably works for the dam or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's walking towards us. We don't look at him. We just kind of pretend like we're playing with rocks or something. Never saw him again. He never made it to us. The next thing we looked up, there was nobody there. The motorcycle was still there.
Huh.
But he just disappeared, basically. Not a lot of places he could have gone. Like, there were deeper woods beside us, but, I mean, he was walking, like, right towards us.
Mm-hmm.
That was, of course, like, just deeply strange.
Yeah.
We hung out there.
Did your friend notice sort of the strangeness of that situation as well? Like, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. He was coming just right towards us, so we looked down, and then we look up, and there's just nobody there. The motorcycle's still there, like I said, but he is just completely gone.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, after the fact concerned for those people swimming there. I'm looking at this place like, wow. So are you saying that you consider these two experiences possible fake experiences just because they were so kind of weird and outside of normal human kind of things?
Yes, but also because of one more thing that happened related. Okay. Yeah, it's like 1.5 more stories. So.
All right, yeah, bring it.
Yeah. when I was 18, I moved to Akron, Ohio. And this one particular night, I had this dream about the tower, the damn tower. And I dreamed that this man rose out of the water, and he sort of looked like, what is the name of the actor who was in Kill Bill? Like, is it David Carradine?
Yeah.
Yeah. He looked like David Carradine. His hair was like blue with like ink, like I call it ink, but it was dripping blue. And he had me go into the tower, go under the tower in this dream, and the walls are painted like like the floor of a swimming pool. It's that same material, that same concrete, and we're just walking down a nondescript hall. And this beautiful young man walks towards me. He's like over 6 feet tall. He has shoulder length red hair, just inhumanly gorgeous. And he's wearing this like bizarre cotton or nylon bodysuit. The suit itself is like not sexy, but it's like he made it look sexy. But it's just I just remember the fabric and touching the fabric, and I remember someone else touched my thigh as I go to embrace this man, and I don't see who's touching my thigh, but I'm just like studying this fabric of this costume he's wearing. So the next day, I'm telling my friend, I'm going to call her Sasha, about this dream, and I'm like, oh, and this gorgeous guy approached me, and we basically started having sex. And I'm telling her about this dream, and she was driving me to this gay bar I was going to hang out at for the night, and she was going to pick me up later. So like I'm telling her about the guy, and then I stop and I say, actually, he looked a lot like that guy. And I pointed to this guy in the parking lot who did look a lot like the guy in the dream. And he wasn't like inhumanly beautiful like I described, but he was like well over 6 feet tall, shoulder length red hair. It's just a dead ringer for this person in the dream. And as I pointed at this guy, she said, oh, I'm going to call him Paul. That's Paul. She was just super excited. And she jumps out of the car. And, it's an old friend of hers she hasn't seen in years, and introduces me. So Sasha leaves, and Paul and I go, and we hang out in the bar. And we have just this great conversation about like esoteric subjects. I never forget, like he told me he was an Aries, and he worshipped what he referred to as, he pronounced Baphomet.
Okay.
And he told me that he was bisexual, and which he connected to part of the reason he was attracted to Baphomet, because Baphomet was hermaphroditic, and etc. And the night became intimate then, and we were laying on a couch, and all of a sudden I noticed that the blanket that he had draped over himself was like the exact fabric and color and texture of the thing that the suit that the guy in the dream, the entity in the dream, was wearing.
So why would you put that in the Fae category as opposed to sort of like a precognitive dream kind of thing, or like a sort of a future echo kind of thing that you were?
Well, that's the sort of the like I said, it was like a story and a half. The second part of that was that my friend Sasha and I then became kind of obsessed with this dam. We really wanted to go back there and check it out with another friend of ours named Alex. And I remember he was like really disturbed that we were we wanted to drive this place that was like 45 minutes away on a Saturday. And he wasn't Wiccan or pagan necessarily, but I know he had some leanings certainly in that direction. Mm-hmm. And the word fae or fairy, none of that came up. But I remember we went to the tower, and he walked down to the river, and he looked in the water, and I could not describe this and make it sound not melodramatic if I tried, but it really wasn't melodramatic. Like, he looked afraid. He claimed he saw a face in the water looking at him, and he ran up the hill, and we went after him. And we asked him why he was so upset, and he said he saw a face, and he said, "Look, there's the Seelie court and the unseelie, and the unseelie is dangerous, and that is what I saw down there."
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one last anecdote about this. So, like I said, I was 18 at this point, but previously, I'd gone to school in the area, and my art teacher was really into. He was a shaman, and also a Buddhist. We were having conversations about the dam and about I told him how I could feel an energy there, and he was describing his cosmology to me, and he referred to the universe as like an orange, and you peel away the different layers. There's only one world, but there's different layers. Then fast forward to this experience where Sasha and I brought Alex to the tower. We go back to our car, and when we got there were no vehicles. There wasn't any vehicle besides ours when we parked there. It was just like nobody was there. There were no people walking around. There was an orange, like a smushed orange, right by our car. Like somebody had grabbed it and just like pounded it into the pavement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Randomly, oranges are a part of the auto thing we're doing, so immediately.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's one of the signs of auto, as people have decided. And I've run into orange peels in two different strange places since.
Are you kidding me?
Out of place. So yeah, I mean, not to say it's definitely that, but no, it's just an interesting synchro there. But oh yeah, no, this whole thing sounds interesting. So have you gone back to this dam since?
I probably went periodically when I would make trips, because I left the state at that point for a while, and left the whole region of the country, in fact. So I made like periodic stops. The last time I was there was maybe about 5 years ago. Was just kind of driving through. I was so sad because, like I said, that just the whole valley down there was just completely flooded, and there wasn't really much you could do to kind of explore anymore. So,
yeah. Huh. Yeah, no, it's interesting how it all sort of ties to that dam, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It might have been a both of kind of thing. I'm thinking with that fellow in the blanket. I don't know. It just seems such an important detail, like the material. And then the blanket was the same material, like the fact that you noted that. And you noted that he was wearing it, and you were like, well, it was odd for a bodysuit, but, and then the blanket's made out of it. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, just one of those experiences where you just know in those moments, okay, this is real. These things are real.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's more to life.
and it's like, why do these things come through? I mean, obviously it was a meaningful exchange all around, but is there more to it than that? Or I don't know. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting. And the fact that your friend would know, you see this guy who looks like the guy from your dream, and your friend knows him already.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
it was like following a narrative. Like right when I described this man, this entity in the dream, I thought, oh, he looked like that guy. He was just there, like on cue.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's like, yeah, when that many things start sort of falling together, it's, well, there's something here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think there was more meaning behind it beyond the relationship with this fellow? And I don't know if it went on from there, if it was just, a short-term thing or whatever. I don't think that's really that important. But do you think it all had to do with that, or do you think it, there was just a general bigger message maybe to the whole series of events?
I think it was just a bigger message in general. I lost touch with the guy, Paul, pretty quickly, but he always just kind of seemed like a misconnection to me, though. Like it seemed meaningful, but it was just not the right time. So I think it had to do with the dam itself, and maybe that there were just sort of some entities who felt that I was receptive to their presence. Maybe, God or the universe just wanted me to realize too that these things exist, and the world is, more complex than I thought.
Yeah, I think so. And who can say? I try to, and I try to give this benefit for everyone. And that's why, like, you heard me earlier resistant to bring up abduction until you did, right?
Sure.
Because these are very personal experiences in many ways. And I think I can sit here and try to interpret them, but I think it's more important for you to interpret your experiences because that's going to mean a lot more. And, I wasn't there. It wasn't for me. So I get very uncomfortable when people from the outside start saying, well, this is what that means. I'd rather ask the witness, like, what do you think it means? How did you feel about it? Because I think in many ways, like I said, the woman you were sitting next to, you saw the person in the costume, the hairy costume. She didn't see it. It wasn't for her. It was for you, and I think they're your experiences to interpret in that sense.
Yeah, very well said. So, like I had said, the figure of the witch, was very interesting to me from an early age, and kind of just growing up feeling like an outsider and being a queer kid in a small town. Eventually, my spirituality took on more of an inclination towards the dark feminine at that time. That was very interesting to me. And, I stumbled upon, the myth of Lilith, and, it had found in some research that she was possibly descended from older, like Babylonian and Sumerian, mother goddesses. And so to me, she didn't seem like a very frightening entity. I just thought that she was probably like a fallen goddess. And that's certainly what I felt at the time. And, when I talk about this experience and how scary it was, I'm not meaning to make a value judgment on anyone who works with her or who has this particular kind of spiritual, aesthetic today. But I was just like feeling just like so disenfranchised by the evangelical climate at the time. And, there was a lot of trauma around that for me too. And I remember just like really being enamored with Lilith. And I got home from a walk, and the house that we lived in at the time, I would have been probably about 16, closer to 17 than 16. So I came into the foyer, and I remember I put my hand on the door frame, and I said to Lilith, I told her that I was dedicated to her, and the house was dedicated to her, which is something that you do when you're 16, I guess. And so maybe as recent as like a couple nights after that, oh God, this is a scary experience. My mom and my stepdad are both at work. So it's me and my two half siblings. My brother would have been like 11. My sister would have been about 10. So I'm just home with them. And we lived up on an incline. We had a very steep driveway, and we had a golden retriever. My brother was in our bedroom playing his PlayStation or something, and my sister was asleep on the chair in the living room beside me, and I was on the couch. And this golden retriever, I remember I was watching Field of Dreams, by the way. It was just like on TV, and I wasn't like super into it. So when the golden retriever started barking, I was just like super interested in what that was barking at, because, it would bark if there was a car on the road below the incline. But we didn't hear any cars. We didn't see any cars. Nothing was coming up the driveway. And the dog, this was a very well-trained dog. Anecdotally, the person who ran the kennel claimed that the dog was from like the dog's like aunt or something was like Air Bud from the Air Bud movies. Yeah. So like really well-behaved dog, not giving the tantrums. This dog was like crying. I mean, she was sobbing, she was whimpering, just making the most terrified sounds. So I'm getting afraid that we have like a prowler out there. And I'm just kind of like waiting to see what would happen. So I'm on the couch, like I said, I look up towards the foyer. So there's the front door, like, at the end of it, and on the left side wall, there's a round mirror that reflects the door. Ooh. Eventually, I look up at the mirror that's reflecting the door, and I see, not on the door itself, but in the reflection, I see this symbol in some kind of red. I don't even want to call it a liquid because it was like an element that I've never encountered before. It was just like some other element. And it was in the shape, today we would call it a hashtag. I know that sounds funny, but back then you used to call it like the pound key, like on a rotary phone. Yeah. That's what I saw. I saw that symbol, and it was just, I wasn't afraid when I saw it. It was just like, okay, this is supernatural. This is happening. I see this. I'm just looking at it, and the dog is crying, and eventually the symbol fades away. I heard a serpentine hissing sound from somewhere in the apartment. It was loud. It was a scary noise. My brother heard it too. You know, there were tears in his eyes when he heard it. We didn't acknowledge it. Like, we didn't say anything, but he looked at me and he looked terrified. Tears came to his eyes. Eventually the dog stopped barking. Nothing else happened that night. Whenever I had school next, I guess, I was telling my art teacher, the shaman, about it. Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, there's a book of symbols that I have at home. I'm gonna, get back to you. So like the next day at school, I remember I'm in homeroom and I see him out in the hallway gesturing to me. And I went out and talked to him, and he made photocopies of this book. And he showed me this page that he photocopied that was of Hebrew holding signs. And I don't remember specifically like what they meant or like what the name of the system was, but they were old Hebrew symbols that people would put on their property. And lo and behold, there was a symbol that looked like the hashtag. Yeah. I was just like astounded. That's what I saw. And he said, okay, you need to figure out who the house belongs to and, who this was. And I told him about the Lilith experience and the Hebrew thing. Like, yeah, that's exactly it. You mess with the dark feminine, you get some dark stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking up, as you were saying that, I was just looking up different symbols of Lilith, and the sigil of Lilith comes close, but not really. I mean, you really have to have a stretch. So the fact that you did find something that did match, is very, very interesting. Yeah. So was it just that sort of one contained incident?
As far as manifesting or anything like that, yeah, that was more or less it. I mean, I had a relationship with her for several years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that sort of put you off from that, but apparently it didn't.
At the time, it didn't. It made me feel kind of just like really jazzed and badass,
Sure, yeah.
But I remember Brother Richard had said in an episode, he was talking about the fruits of the Holy Spirit being, peace and comfort. And, when you're dealing with something that makes you afraid, that's something you might want to question. And I was afraid when I heard that hiss, and I was afraid when I saw the symbol, I wasn't afraid, but the whole experience was unnerving. And these days, it's just not an energy that I would want to tap into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's some, I don't know if it's natural. I don't know when you're younger, if you're just drawn to darker things sometimes, or maybe certain personalities are. Yeah. I don't know, but I certainly was and would have been at those similar ages myself, Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's sort of, as time goes on, it kind of loses some of the appeal, I guess. That's really, really interesting. So how long after you had, essentially dedicated the house to Lilith, that happened again?
I think that was just days after.
Oh, okay. So pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, it happened pretty soon after.
Yeah. And then you sort of continued in that current for a while.
Yeah, I did.
After. I did. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, around that age, I think the fact that you had gotten anything, any kind of result or anything, I think, it's exciting and titillating. And And I think I probably would have done the same, quite honestly. I want to thank you so much for sharing your stories, Morgan. If anything else strange happens, you know where to find me.
I'll be more than willing. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.
What are these, Allison? I understand they're owls, but they're taking some form of...
I think they might be creamers, like little mini, but they're decorative creamers. They're not really meant... I mean, I guess you're particularly fancy. Maybe you could put a little cream in there, but...
They're neat owls.
Well, I like them too because they're almost like a Strange Familiars blue color.
Yeah, yeah.
There's definitely one that's a little better than the other one will be. The other one will be discounted a little bit because of that. It has kind of a rough edge and a little bit of discoloration, but they're
sort of a utility owl. You could use it if you'd like, or you could put it on your shelf.
I think it would just kind of look cool sitting there.
Oh, yeah. No, I like them a lot. They're very cool. So these are little mini pitchers or creamers
in spectral blue color.
Oh yeah, I like that. Like in the Strange Familiars blue. This will be our curiosity of the week. I took pictures of these, and I'll put an image of those in the show notes. And if you click on that, it'll take you to Etsy, where you can purchase those or other curiosities of the week. These will be available individually, or if you want to buy them both, you can. It'll be the same listing for both of them. While you're at Etsy, make sure to check out our other offerings, including artwork, prints, and originals, including the artwork for tonight's show. Got Strange Familiars t-shirts, stickers, patches, and more. My books are there, and if you get them from us on Etsy, they will come signed. You don't even have to ask. I'll sign them before we pack them up. Very soon, and this will be on Etsy and on Bandcamp, my 2 new albums will be coming out, The Sacred Heart of Hum and The Secret Heart of Hum. 2 albums I did over the past few years. It's been a long time since I've put out a full album, and I've been working on these and 2 full albums, so I'm trying to work my way back into the music thing a bit more. I've been missing it a lot. So those will be available very soon. Our Etsy shop name is Lost Grave, but if you type in Strange Familiars at Etsy, you should see our stuff come up. And there's always links to our Etsy shop in the show notes to every episode and at strangefamiliars.com. Riverbend Comics, riverbendcomics.com. If you go there and type in High Strangeness, John has a pre-order for the High Strangeness comic series by Spectre Vision. And I did cover B for issue 2 of High Strangeness Comics, and I should have maybe a little piece of writing in there as well, maybe some extra illustrations. We'll see. I'm working on a little something else. So there might be more Timothy Renner in issue 2 than previously thought, hopefully, given they like what I wrote. But you can pre-order that now at Riverbend Comics or wherever you get comics. I was saying online, I fell in love with comics when I was 5 years old. It's been my dream to work on them ever since. And the fact that I get to illustrate some comic covers these days it's a real dream come true. So whether you get it from Riverbend or your local comic shop or wherever, please get one because it's sort of helping me out a lot. And if my cover sells a lot, the chances of me getting to do more comic covers go way up, making a 5-year-old Tim's dreams come true there by helping me out with that. And I don't get any extra money. I've already been paid. So, I'm not doing this to try to get extra money to get more sold. I just want more to sell so I can hopefully do more comic covers in the future. Albatwitch Day.
Yes.
It is October 11th. It's the second Saturday in October. It is across from Chickies.
Yeah, across from Chickies Rock.
And is it from 11 a.m. till 5 p.m.?
It is.
11 a.m. to 5 p.m.?
It is at 4696 Breezy View Drive in Columbia, Pennsylvania, 17512. It's at the former First Assembly of God. It's a church that's no longer in use, as I understand. So,
lots of property for us to set up on, lots of parking. Super excited about it. It's going to be a great day.
So it's just up the hill from where it has been in years past.
Yes. We should have new t-shirts for that day. Maybe new hoodies. We're going to see. And of course, we'll have our setup with all of our books and our other t-shirts that we already have made and all that cool, strange, familiar stuff. And I will be speaking that day. That's Albatwitch Day, October 11th just outside of Columbia, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Come and see us and see everything else that's going on there. Albatwitch Day is one of the most fun days of the year. I believe John will be with us. Hopefully Chad will be there. We'll have a great day, as every Albatwitch Day is. And there's lots of stuff to do for all ages. Mm-hmm. And it's pet friendly, I believe, right? You can bring your dog.
I mean, I don't know that it says one way or another, but I can't imagine.
In the past, it's been pet friendly. Yeah. We can assume this is.
I can't imagine there would be any.
Yeah, but it's certainly family friendly. You can bring kids. There's tons of stuff to do for kids, tons of food.
Usually there's a roaming Albatwitch.
Great vendors. Yeah. And since
with apples and.
Yeah, exactly. So come on out. So it's a fun day. Hope to see everybody there. All right. I think that's it for this week. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. And like I said, very soon, I will have 2 new albums out. They will be available on Bandcamp. They'll be on Etsy. The Sacred Heart of Hum and The Secret Heart of Hum. We are on Instagram at Strange Familiars, one word, no underscore. Please follow us there. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Strange Familiars. You can join the Strange Familiars Gathering group there. For Strange Familiars merch, go to strangefamiliars.com/merch. For everything else, links to everything we do, go to strangefamiliars.com.
And
the tree. Man, his calls sound just like death. Now he's so close, listen to his breath. And what black magic holds me in his game? If I walk with Sam, I walk unto my grave. I know his name, it's Walking Sam. Cries are cursed and damned, and now he's calling you and me, all for to follow him through the tree. Tall man, his eyes burning like coal.